So I think it's good we start with Surah Al-Fatiha. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillah rabbil alameen, ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, maliki yawmiddin, iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in, ihdinas as-sirata al-mustaqim, sirata alladhina an'amta alayhim ghayril maghdubi alayhim walad-dallin. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين ولعن الله ولا أعدائهم أجمعين من الأولين والآخرين آمين يا رب العالمين. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك، عليكم منا جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعل الله آخر الأهد منا لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. Peace be upon you, O Aba Abdullah, and upon the souls who have gathered in your courtyard. Upon you, from us all, is the peace of God forever, for as long as we remain and as long as night and day endure. And may God never make this our last pledge to visit you. Peace be upon Husayn, and upon Ali, the son of Husayn, and upon the children of Husayn, and upon the companions of Husayn. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So this is the fifth in our series of sessions for these nights of Ashura and Arba'een on the subject of Tabyeen or clarification. As with all of our other sessions, such as those on patience, the lantern of the path, or the art of supplication, it is strongly recommended that anyone consuming this, at the very least, review the previous sessions prior to consuming this one. This is because of the nature of the discussion, the manner of discourse, really does require that each part build upon the ones that came before, so as to avoid confusion, misunderstanding, and invalid assumptions that can lead to what would be the antithesis of Tabyeen or clarification. While we do have a recap for each session, the recap is highly summarized, and to get the full nuance, the previous sessions will need to be consumed, studied, and reflected upon. Nevertheless, if I can get a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, we can move on with the recap.
اللهم صل
صل
على محمد
على محمد وآل محمد
وآل محمد
وعجل فرج.
So, in the fourth session of the Tabyeen series, the previous session, our discourse shifted to the inner and structural conditions required for one to fulfill the duty of clarification. Tabyeen or clarification is not a matter of volume, emotion, or public spectacle. It is a sacred trust, requiring insight, restraint, sincerity, and alignment with divine order. The session opened by emphasizing that clarification must align with righteous leadership. Those engaged in this duty are not free agents. Their actions must correspond to the trajectory set by the divinely anchored leadership of the community of the Ummah. In the same way that soldiers do not initiate campaigns without command, those who clarify must ensure their efforts reflect the objectives of the sacred movement, not just personal sentiment. It was then established that three qualities are indispensable to the success of this movement. The first one being unity of understanding and awareness of the battlefield. A clear grasp of the ideological terrain, societal conditions, and the forces of truth and falsehood is absolutely essential. No effort can succeed without correct recognition of the arena. Number two, a defined direction towards Islamic civilization. The goal of clarification is not merely reactive opposition to falsehood, but rather its active construction of a society built upon justice, tawheed or monotheism, and divine guidance or wilayah. The third point was hope rooted in the divine promise. Without confidence in God's assurance of victory, movements collapse under adversity. Victory, however, is reserved for those who walk the path of faith and law. In Quran, in the chapter of Prophet Muhammad, Surah Muhammad, 47th chapter of the Quran, verse number 7, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, if you help God, He will help you. This is not an allegory. It is a spiritual law. Just as gravity governs the physical world, divine laws govern the rise and fall of nations. These sunan, or divine precedents of God, do not change. In Quran, in Surah Al-Fath, the chapter of conquest, 48th chapter of the Quran, verse number 23, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "It is God's precedent or sunnah that has passed before, and you will never find any change in God's precedent." The session continued by addressing the personal readiness required for those who undertake clarification. Faith is essential, but without piety, sincerity, and the rejection of sin, it may become unstable. Sins of the ego, such as backbiting, arrogance, and unjust suspicion, defile the one who speaks, rendering even truthful speech ineffective. In the Quran, in Surah Al-Talaq, the chapter of the divorce, 65th chapter of the Quran, the 2nd verse, God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, "Whoever is wary of God, he shall make for him a way out." Clarification must be conducted with ethical speech. Foul language, mockery, and personal attacks, even against opponents of truth, are condemned. When some of his followers used abusive speech in battle, Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam Ali, peace and blessings be upon him, corrected them by saying, "Indeed, I detest for you that you should become abusers of others." And this is from Nahj al-Balagha, and as with all of these sessions, the citations and footnotes are available in the write-up. I encourage everyone to take a look. Those who carry out the message of divine justice must speak with its spirit, with balance, precision, and composure. This extends to a disagreement. If a false idea must be challenged, it should be refuted, not its speaker disgraced. Character assassination and slander have no place in clarification. Again, in Quran, Surah An-Nur, the chapter of light, 24th chapter of the Quran, verse number 12, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, "When you first heard about it, why did not the faithful men and women think well of their folk?" Now, in the digital realm, the crisis of adab or etiquette is especially acute. The anonymity of the internet has eroded restraint, and even sincere voices fall into disrespectful conduct. But the command to speak with justice applies universally, whether on the pulpit or on a social platform. The session further clarified that divine service must never become an excuse for violating the law. This is the Sharia, the Islamic law. The legal and ethical framework of Islam is not to be bent in the name of zeal. Instead, sincere initiative must occur within it, with lawful creativity and patient cultural work, not unruliness. Lastly, it was established that no one may clarify without understanding. Knowledge must precede articulation. This is the contract of the clarifier, to seek, reflect, and verify before speaking. It is a moral and spiritual obligation. In the Quran, in Surah Al-Taghabun, the chapter of mutual dispossession, 64th chapter of the Quran, verse number 11, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "Whoever has faith in God, he guides his heart." The believer who clarifies must first clarify within, aligning their heart to the truth, restraining their tongue, and refining their method. Only then will their words bring light rather than heat. The session that we will discuss today will delve into the advanced dimensions of clarification, how to distinguish real tabyeen, real clarification, from its imitations, the necessity of timing and cultural intelligence, the virtues of insight, steadiness, and strategic silence, and how the clarifier must remain principled in an area of noise, reaction, and sedition. May God guide our tongues to truth, our intentions to sincerity, and our speech to that which is pleasing to Him. Please give me a salawat and we proceed.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل
محمد وعجل فرجه.
So let us now look at the idea of clarification versus the illusion of clarification. Not all that presents itself as clarification is, in fact, sincere or productive. At times, what masquerades as clarification can serve only to cloud public understanding, deepen division, and weaken trust in leadership and principles. One such danger arises when internal disagreements, particularly among those in positions of responsibility, are aired irresponsibly before the public. Differences in policy or vision are natural within any leadership structure. But if they are not managed wisely and privately, their public projection can have tangible consequences. When economic disagreements, for example, are broadcast to the public, they do not remain theoretical. They manifest as confusion in markets, uncertainty in business, and anxiety in the public psyche. Clarification, when wielded sincerely, serves to uplift and unify. But when it becomes a tool for factionalism or for fueling popular unrest, it ceases to be clarification, and it becomes instead an illusion of truth, a form of distortion dressed in the language of transparency. The next point that we will discuss is resisting the narrative of normalization with America. Two false impressions are being quietly sown into the minds of the public. The first is being promoted directly by arrogant powers, such as America, and indirectly through the media, through internal agents, some knowingly aligned with hostile agendas, others motivated by disillusionment or a thirst for worldly comfort. This deception centers on a distortion of the late Imam Khomeini's words, in particular his enduring instruction: whatever cries, whatever shouts, protests you have, direct them at America. The claim made by some is that this statement was born of anger or irrational zeal, lacking any real intellectual basis. They argue that opposition to America is emotional, it's outdated, or rooted in stubbornness. Such a view seeks to paint the youth and revolutionaries who raise their voices against imperialism as fanatics, driven by ignorance rather than awareness. This is not just a misrepresentation, rather it is an inversion of the truth. Imam Khomeini's statement is grounded in profound insight. His opposition to America was not reactionary. It was rooted in a clear understanding of American foreign policy, which for over a century has operated on the principles of intervention, domination, and the exploitation of nations under the guise of stability and partnership. Whether in West Asia, in Latin America, in Africa, in Southeast Asia, the United States has routinely sought to secure its own internal cohesion by destabilizing others. In the case of Iran, for example, this interference reached its peak under the rule of the now dead Shah, a period in which American influence permeated every aspect of national sovereignty. Imam Khomeini's call to resistance was, therefore, not only a matter of Islamic principle, but actually of humanitarian concern. He stood against a power that had long trampled justice, truth, and the dignity of people across the world. Even American political figures, in moments of electoral competition, have exposed the same feelings. Racism, social inequality, corporate tyranny, and mass hunger are all admitted realities in the very heart of the United States. When the people chant "Death to America," they are not calling for violence against the nation's people. Rather, they are rejecting a system built on oppression, greed, and systemic injustice. The revolutionary stance against American hegemony is not emotional. It is not born from blind hatred or irrational pride. It is built on logic, historical memory, and the defense of universal principles, principles that America itself, by its own admission, has repeatedly betrayed. Let us now look at the dangers of compromise. The second false idea, even more dangerous than the first, is the claim that if a nation were to compromise with America, its problems would be resolved. This illusion, repeated often enough, begins to take root in the minds of the public as a viable political solution. But it is not a solution. It is a trap. The belief that compromise with hostile powers will lead to economic stability, political progress, or social ease is a fantasy built on deception. Time and again, the opposite has proven true. History, recent and ancient, offers us ample evidence, none more compelling than the recent experience of the so-called nuclear deal, the now defunct JCPOA. Even before the ink had dried, America had begun to undermine its commitments. Senior officials warned repeatedly that the other side would not remain true to their word. Eventually, even the negotiators themselves, those who had sacrificed time and energy in good faith, came to acknowledge America's duplicity. America did not seek partnership, it sought leverage. It negotiated while holding a stone in one hand and extending the other in apparent friendship. It promised relief while quietly preparing sanctions. It extended dialogue while pursuing regional domination. From Syria to Lebanon, from Iraq to Afghanistan, America's strategy has been one of interference and imposition, never of cooperation. Can such a system offer any solutions? America itself is in crisis, economically, politically, morally. Its debt nears the size of its total gross domestic product. In fact, it's gone beyond that. Its people face rising poverty. Its international standing is deteriorating. The slogan of "Death to America," once considered unique to one nation, is now chanted across continents, from Latin America to Africa, from West Asia to parts of Europe to Southeast Asia. The oppressed know who their tormentor is. Let us be clear, though. Compromise with such a power will not resolve any difficulties. Rather, it will deepen them. If there are challenges within an economy or governance, then they must be resolved by the efforts of the people themselves, by the will and sacrifice of the people, especially the youth. To seek salvation at the hands of those who aim to break and usurp people, this is not pragmatism. This is betrayal. Please give me a salawat and we move to looking at clarification in action.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل
وعلى
محمد
محمد وعجل فرجك.
So clarification is not fulfilled by rhetoric alone. True clarification manifests through the alignment of word and deed, through conduct, character, presence, and sacrifice. It is not enough to explain the truth. One must embody it. Those who have carried the banner of truth across generations did not limit themselves to speeches. They engaged, motivated, connected, and inspired, not only by their tongues, but by their lives. For those who are new to the field of ideological struggle, the veterans must serve as luminous examples, guiding by their sincerity, humility, and presence. As, for example, the narration states, "Be callers, inviters to the people without your tongues, so that they may see from you piety, effort, prayer, and goodness, for that is true invitation." And of course, the references for this hadith and all of the other points are in the write-up. And again, I invite everyone to take a look at that. This principle was embodied by Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him and his family, in his mission. And it was renewed in our age by Imam Khomeini, God rest his eternal soul, who did not merely explain the message of revolution, but he lived it. His was a path of movement, deliberate, rooted in faith, driven by clarity of vision and an unwavering commitment to divine sovereignty. In a true revolution, speech and writing are not ends in themselves. They are servants of the moment. One must traverse trench by trench, day by day, struggle by struggle, until the goal is reached. That goal is none other than the establishment of divine justice and the disintegration of systems of falsehood. In the Quran, in Surah As-Saf, the chapter of the ranks, 61st chapter of the Quran, verse number 9, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, "It is he who sent his apostle with guidance and the true religion, that he may make it prevail over all religions, though the polytheists should be averse." Clarification, therefore, is not the mere articulation of ideas. It is a covenant of sincerity, a responsibility to act, and a commitment to walk the path of truth until the end. Now let us look at the critical importance of timeliness. Among the most vital requirements of effective clarification is timeliness. Even the most righteous stance, if delayed, can become impotent. Action taken at the wrong moment, whether too late or too hesitant, can squander divine opportunity and shift the course of history. The people of Qom, for example, during a key episode of the revolutionary movement, acted promptly in defense of truth. Their response was not delayed by bureaucracy, by fear, or by indecision. They perceived the danger, identified the insult against the honor of the Imam, and reacted with immediacy. This timeliness amplified the effect of their action. Had they waited a day, a week, a month, the impact would have been lost. An obligation has its appointed time. The best moment to act upon it is at its first emergence. Delayed responses diminish clarity. The pages of Islamic history are replete with examples of delayed action and their consequences. For example, consider the movement of the Tawabun, the penitents, who rose after the tragedy of Karbala. Though they were sincere, their uprising came too late. Imam Husayn, peace and blessings be upon him, had already been martyred. The moment of decisive support had passed. Though they outnumbered the martyrs of Karbala, their impact did not equal even a fraction of the sacrifice made on the day of Ashura. Their delay reduced their cause to a footnote in the broader narrative of resistance. Likewise, when Muslim bin Aqil, the emissary of Imam Husayn, stood alone in Kufa, it was not due to the absence of supporters in principle. Rather, the elite of the time hesitated. They deferred responsibility, each awaiting the other, and they abandoned the Imam's representative to the enemy. Even a group of 100 loyal individuals, had they rallied, could have protected him and changed the course of events. The lesson here is profound. If the elite fail to act at the right moment, if insight gives way to doubt or procrastination, then another Karbala is always possible. Other historical examples confirm this truth. The revolt in Medina under Abdullah ibn Hanzala, though bold, and we've discussed this previously in one of our other series, though bold, came too late. Similarly, in Algeria, when the Islamic Front won a democratic election but failed to mobilize in the critical early hours of the military coup, the chance was lost. A delay of hours resulted in decades of suppression. By contrast, on the 7th of February 1979, when martial law was declared in Iran, Imam Khomeini acted without hesitation. He called the people to the streets. If he had not acted at that moment, the Shah's regime may well have returned. But history turned on that timely call. As in the past, so in the present, obligations must be fulfilled in their appointed time. If not, history may be rewritten, not by the righteous, but by the forces of oppression. Let us now look at steadfastness and insight in clarification. Clarification is not a one-time act. It requires endurance. The one who grows weary in the face of hardship or becomes disheartened by a delay cannot carry the banner of truth. The Islamic Revolution was not born overnight. It was the fruit of decades of struggle, of decades of resistance and intellectual preparation. Those who carried the burden in the years leading to the uprising of 1979, long before its peak, they clarified, they challenged, they published, they taught, and they endured. They faced imprisonment, isolation, and torture, not because they were reckless, but because they were steadfast. This steadfastness, when joined with insight, becomes an unstoppable force, It transforms whispered truths into public discourse and creates a cultural current so powerful that it compels even the hesitant to recognize it. The more resilient the clarifier, the greater the chances that society will internalize the message. Insight is the foundation of effective clarification. Without it, a person may speak eloquently and yet misdiagnose reality. A Friday prayer leader, a scholar, or any ideological guide must be like a physician, not only diagnosing the ailment, but prescribing the cure with wisdom, precision, and compassion. We are not permitted to merely recite truths into the void. As the Quran says, this is from Surah An-Nur, the chapter of light, 24th chapter of the Quran, verse 54. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, the apostle's duty is only to communicate in clear terms. Yet this communication is not passive. The message must penetrate the hearts. The clarifier must understand the audience's intellectual state, their emotional condition, and their social anxieties, and then speak accordingly. Many from the time of Imam Hassan, peace and blessings be upon him, failed, not due to malice, but due to a lack of analysis. The Khawarij, though seemingly devout, were easily swayed by demagogues because they lacked this capacity. Similarly, the companions who abandoned Imam Ali, peace and blessings be upon him, did so not, and he did not do that out of enmity, but because they failed to see things clearly. The commander of the faithful has said, and this banner will be borne only by those who possess insight and endurance. First comes deep understanding, then unyielding resilience. Without both, the path becomes treacherous. The history of falsehood is filled with those who block the path of divine truth through disinformation, intimidation, or brute force. It is not an easy path, but when one locates the road of truth, life becomes purposeful, free from tyranny, free from coercion, and free from spiritual darkness. Please give me a salawat and we move to forming lasting discourse.
اللهم صل على
اللهم صل على
محمد
محمد وآل
وآل
محمد عجل
محمد
فرجه.
وعجل.
True clarification does not merely inform, it establishes a discourse. The discourse is a shared understanding woven into the fabric of public consciousness. It is when a value, a principle, or a stance becomes so familiar and accepted that it shapes behavior, speech, and even instinct. For a revolutionary truth to transform into a social current, it must be repeated, must be refined, and intelligently introduced into every level of society. Those who lead prayers, those who write columns, those who speak in universities or address communities must return again and again to the central themes until what was once novel becomes normative and what was once contested becomes conclusive. This is how the concept of, for example, the resistance economy became a recognized framework. It was not through mere repetition of slogans, but through sustained intellectual and practical effort over more than a decade. When such ideas are studied, debated, and taught in universities, they take root. They become part of the psyche, of the national psyche. And with this, advancement follows. As seen in fields such as, for example, space science, nanotechnology, biotechnology, nuclear research, these were not accidental. They were the fruits of discourse. However, discourse is not formed by hollow repetitions. Terms and slogans must be explained. They must be contextualized and integrated with lived experience. Merely echoing words like resistance or justice or independence without depth risks draining them of meaning. Clarity must accompany repetition. This applies also to critique. When issues are addressed, a balance must be struck, neither ignoring flaws nor indulging in pessimism. Constant negativity breeds hopelessness, while blind optimism clouds judgment. A realistic lens sees both successes and shortcomings. It offers hope without illusion and warning without despair. Unfortunately, some elements in media and political culture thrive on cynicism. They exaggerate failures, they obscure achievements, and darken the public horizon. This too is a distortion and a betrayal of the trust of the people. Discourse must be built on sincerity, not on spectacle. If we wish to raise awareness and mobilize society, we must frame our message in a manner that empowers rather than paralyzes, in a manner that inspires action, not apathy. Please give me a salawat and we move to the conclusion.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجه.
So from clarification to cultural influence. So in this, which is actually the second part of our discussions or reflections on the requirements of clarification, we have explored the outer and inner framework of effective tabyeen, effective clarification, a framework built on insight, timing, resilience, and responsible public discourse. We have seen how clarification must not be reduced to performance or reaction. It must be rooted in vision and action, carried with awareness and steadfastness. We considered the danger of delayed obligations, the misreading of events, and the historical consequences of silence or hesitation. We reaffirmed that neither empty repetition nor unbalanced criticism builds a civilization. Only sincere, thoughtful, and timely clarification does. Yet this is only one dimension of the duty. In the next session, we will turn inward and upward. We will explore the spiritual, emotional, and intellectual traits required of those who carry this trust. The role of innovation, mannerism, and emotional resonance. The impact of proper use of media and the arts. The need for courage in thoughts and speech. And the guidance of the revolutionary thinkers of Islam, from Imam Khomeini and Shahid Mutahhari to Shahid Beheshti, Ayatollah Misbah Yazdi, Imam Khamenei, and beyond. Clarification, after all, is not just a duty of speech. It is a craft of the heart, a science of the soul, and a strategic responsibility of those who seek to serve truth in every age. Please give me a salawat and we move to the supplication eulogy for this evening, which is the Sons of the Silent Lioness.
اللهم صل على محمد
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
In his name, the Lord of the martyrs and the truthful. O God, send your blessings upon Muhammad and the family of Muhammad. O God, tonight we turn to two stars whose names are whispered by those who know love without need of applause. They did not speak before crowds. They did not recite sermons. They simply walked forward when the Imam nodded, and they never returned. Aoun and Muhammad, sons of the lioness, children of the silent mountain, Sayyidah Zainab. O my Lord, when a mother gives her sons for your cause, what reward could match such a gift? She was not just the sister of Husayn, she was the mirror of Sayyidah Fatima. And just as the Lady of Light stood by her father in Mecca, Sayyidah Zainab stood by her brother in Karbala. But she did not just stand, she sent. O my sons, go now, do not return to me, unless it is with swords broken, hearts offered, and heads raised high before the Lord of Karbala. O God, what kind of mother is this? Not one of sorrowful hesitation, but one of sacred conviction. They rode out, young and pure, like warriors whose souls had never known sin. They struck with bravery beyond their years, until the swords surrounded them and they fell. They fell like petals from a rose, and Karbala wept in silence. O Sayyidah Zainab, what strength held your back straight that day, when other mothers wailed? You thanked God when others were shaken. You stood firm. You did not mourn in the moment. because you had already given your grief to God. O God, accept this from us. And in that whisper, you taught us what it means to love for his sake. O my Imam, O son of Hassan, when you rise to complete what Husayn began, when you raise the cry of justice, will there be sons ready to march as Aun and Muhammad did? Will there be mothers ready to send them, not clinging but praying? O Master, make our families like theirs. Make our hearts fearless, make our loyalty complete. O God, make us of those who offer what they love most, seeking only your face. And grant us nearness to the Zainabis, the patience of the mothers, and the struggle of the righteous. Tonight we remember those whose names are often forgotten, but whose sacrifice is inscribed in heaven. 2 boys, 1 mother, and a love that did not blink when it looked death in the eye. Tonight we cry for the beauty of surrender, for Aun and Muhammad, and for Sayyidah Zainab, the one who sent. وآخر الدعواني أن الحمد لله رب العالمين والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.